Rimmeru, the Hero Copycat by RimuruEdward6. Chapter 38. Hawk's Paw. The smell hit me before I even opened my eyes, something rich, savory, and undeniably delicious. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, but as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and sat up, the scent grew stronger. I followed it into the kitchen, still half asleep, and stopped in my tracks. There was Rimmeru, standing at the stove, a spatula in one hand and a plate in the other. The counter was covered in an impressive spread: perfectly cooked eggs, golden brown pancakes, crispy bacon, and even a small bowl of fruit that looked like it belonged in a fancy cafe. "Morning," she said casually, not even glancing back as she flipped a pancake with practiced ease. I blinked, still trying to process what I was seeing. "Rimmeru," I started, stepping into the kitchen, "did you make all this?" She touched over her shoulder, raising an eyebrow. "Who else would have made it?" I let out a low whistle, eyeing the spread. "This looks amazing. Where did you learn to cook like this?" She stripped, turning back to the stove. "When you don't have much, you learn to make the most of what you've got. Cooking just became one of those things I got good at." I walked closer, still marveling at the food. "Well, you're more than good at it. This could rival any restaurant." Her lips quirked into a small smile, but she didn't say anything, instead focusing on plating the last pancake. "All right," she said, setting the plate on the counter. "Dig in before it gets cold." I grabbed a plate and started loading it up, still half in awe. "You didn't have to do this, you know," I said, glancing at her. She snapped again, sitting down with her own plate. "I owe you for letting me stay. Consider it my way of saying thanks." I grinned, taking a bite of the eggs. They were perfect, fluffy and seasoned just right. "Well, consider the debt paid in full," I said, my voice muffled by food. "This is incredible." She chuckled softly, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. "It's just breakfast." "Not just breakfast," I corrected, gesturing to the spread. "This is a feast. If hero work doesn't pan out, you can open a restaurant." She rolled her eyes but didn't argue, instead focusing on her food. As we ate, the tension from the past few days seemed to fade, replaced by an easy, comfortable silence. For once, it felt like things were normal, like we weren't carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And honestly, it was nice. "Thanks, Rimmeru," I said after a while, my tone more sincere. This means a lot." She changed at me, her golden eyes softening. "You're welcome, Hawks." And in that moment, I realized just how much she'd been holding back. She might not always show it, but Rimmeru cared, deeply. And this breakfast, it was just one more way she let that show. After breakfast, Rimmeru stood from the table and stretched, her usual guarded demeanor replaced by something more relaxed. "All right," she said casually, stepping back toward the kitchen. Then, without warning, she performed a series of intricate hand signs, and I watched in disbelief as the plates and utensils started cleaning themselves. "What the?" I began, blinking as the dishes floated, scrubbed themselves, and neatly returned to their places in the cabinets. She glanced at me over her shoulder, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. "What? Never seen a little alchemical cleanup before." I stared at her, still processing what I'd just seen. "You're full of surprises, Rimmeru." "Part of my charm," she replied with a grin, grabbing her bag and slinging it over her shoulder. "Anyway, I'm heading to school. I'll see you after work hours tonight." Before I could respond, she waved and bolted out the door, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she ran off. I chuckled to myself, shaking my head. She really is something else. But her words from the previous night still lingered in the back of my mind. The nightmare, the confession about her quirk, the fear of becoming like All for One, it was a lot to unpack. And as much as I wanted to help her, I knew I couldn't do it alone. With that thought, I grabbed my phone and keys, heading out to my meeting with All Might. The usual meeting spot was a quiet cafe tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the city. All Might was already there when I arrived, seated at a table in the corner, his large frame making the chair look comically small. "Hawks," he greeted warmly, standing to shake my hand. "Thank you for meeting me." "Thanks for making time," I replied, taking a seat across from him. "I've got a lot to talk about, and I need your input." His expression shifted, concern replacing his usual cheerful demeanor. "Is this about Rimmeru?" I nodded, leaning forward. "Yeah." She's been through more than I think even she realizes. And last night, I learned things that, well, let's just say it's complicated. All Might's brow furrowed as he folded his hands on the table. Tell me everything. And so I did, recounting everything from her nightmare to her confessions about her quirk and her past. When I finished, All Might was quiet for a moment, his thoughtful gaze fixed on the table. You were right to come to me, he said finally, his tone serious. Rimuru is carrying a heavy burden, one no child should have to bear. But she's not alone anymore, Hawks. And with our support, I believe she can overcome it. I nodded, his words reassuring but not enough to ease the knot in my chest. She's tough, no question about that. But I'm worried about how much more she can take before it's too much. All Might's gaze softened. We'll make sure she doesn't have to carry this weight alone. Together, we can help her find her strength, and remind her that she doesn't have to fight this battle by herself. It wasn't a complete solution, but it was a start. And for now, that was enough. All for one paw. Her voice returned, as it always did, smooth, mocking, and laced with that insufferable confidence that made my blood boil. Father, she began, her tone light and teasing, it's so good to speak with you again. I see you've been busy, getting things ready for your operation again. Good for you. I clenched my fists, already bracing for her next move. But you know what's even better, Father. She continued, her voice taking on a sharper edge. I've taken away your truth card. I froze, my mind racing as her words sank in. You always held onto that, didn't you? She said, almost pityingly. The idea that you could expose me, ruin everything I've built with the truth about who I am. But now, I've used the truth card myself. I leaned forward, my expression darkening. What have you done, Rimuru? Her laughter echoed in my mind, soft and infuriating. Oh, Father, it's simple. I've made myself the gullible child hero. The one with the tragic backstory, the shitty father, and the bright, hopeful future. Hawks saved me from you, didn't you hear? I slammed my fist down on the desk, my voice low and venomous. You're twisting the narrative. Of course I am, she replied smoothly. I've taken the truth and turned it into a weapon. A weapon against you. Now, I've got the whole, super op, card on the table. My quirk's been revealed, its limits stretched, its potential acknowledged, but nobody really cares. Her words stung, not because they were lies, but because they were the perfect manipulation of reality. She'd weaponized her story in a way that made my greatest leverage utterly useless. They don't see me as a threat, she continued, her tone almost gleeful. They see me as a hero, a symbol of hope, of resilience. The kid who escaped her villainous father to become something better. Even if you told them the truth, Father, they'd only see you as the monster I overcame. I sat back, my mind racing to find a counter to her strategy, but every angle led to the same conclusion, she'd outmaneuvered me. You've made yourself untouchable, I said finally, my voice cold. Not untouchable, she corrected, her tone soft but firm. Just prepared. And now, Father, the board is mine. Your move. Her presence faded, leaving me alone with her parting words. I leaned back in my chair, my mind a storm of frustration and reluctant admiration. She'd taken my greatest weapon against her and turned it into her shield. But no shield was impenetrable. You've outplayed me this time, Rimuru, I murmured, a slow smile spreading across my face. But every game has a final move. And when the time comes, I'll make sure mine is one you never see coming. I sat alone in the dim light of my chamber, the silence broken only by the faint hum of machinery around me. Rimuru's voice still echoed in my mind, her mockery and triumph ringing louder than I wanted to admit. She had turned the truth against me, flipped the narrative to make herself untouchable. It was a masterstroke, I would concede that much. But every move, no matter how brilliant, left a trail of vulnerabilities. I leaned forward, steepling my fingers as my mind began to churn. She's made herself the tragic hero, I murmured, my voice cold and deliberate. A story so compelling, even the truth becomes irrelevant. Clever girl. But stories, no matter how well crafted, were still bound by reality. In Rimuru's reality, her very existence, was built on a quirk that mirrored my own. That was my advantage. No matter how far she runs, I muttered, a slow smile spreading across my face, she cannot escape the roots of her power. She's connected to me in ways even she cannot fully sever. The first step was clear: gather information. If Rimmeru's quirk truly had no limits, then I needed to understand its full capabilities, not just the lies she'd fed to the world, but the truth she kept hidden even from herself. I pressed a button on the console before me, summoning one of my most loyal operatives. The door hissed open, and a shadowed figure stepped inside, bowing low. "My lord. Begin surveillance on Rimmeru," I commanded, my tone sharp. "I want everything: her movements, her connections, her strategies. Leave no detail unchecked." The figure nodded, disappearing as quickly as they had come. I turned back to the console, pulling up files on every encounter Rimmeru had with heroes, villains, and anyone in between. Patterns would emerge, they always did, and when they did, I would strike. She may have shielded herself with a carefully crafted story, I mused aloud, but even shields crack under the right pressure. And then there was Hawks. The fool had taken her in, believed her lies, and allowed her access to the inner workings of the hero world. He was a liability, one I could exploit. If Hawks trusts her completely, I murmured, then he's already compromised. But trust can be a dangerous thing. All it takes is one planted seed of doubt. I leaned back, a slow, sinister smile spreading across my face as my plan began to take shape. "Rimmeru," I said softly, as if speaking directly to her. "You've outmaneuvered me for now. But the game isn't over. And the more you build your castle of lies, the higher it will fall when I strike. The pieces were already moving, and I will ensure that when the time comes, the board was mine to control. I just had to outplay my own created opponent."